Hey everybody, welcome back to Whisky Central. If you're new here, my name is Shayla, and today I'm reviewing Clynelish 14Yr. So I've got some history for you today, but if you want to skip around to other parts of the video, there's timestamps in the description box below. And if you enjoy whiskey reviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new videos. So Clynelish is Gaelic for sloped garden or sloped pasture, and you can't really talk about Clynelish without talking about the clearances. This was a time in the 19th century where landowners forcibly moved out their tenants. At the time, the landowners figured that they could make more money by using their acreage as grazing land for sheep than they could by renting it to local farmers. Sutherland was one of the most affected areas, and the Duke and Duchess of Sutherland were at the hand of most of these evictions. They burned villages and murdered anyone unwilling to leave their homes. Around 15,000 people were evicted from their homes in the early 1800s. Some farmers were shipped to America, Australia, and others were shipped to the north coast of Scotland where they were charged rent. And to cover this rent, they were forced to work at the other businesses the Duke set up. The Duke set up many businesses in Brora, including a distillery called Clynelish where these local farmers worked. And this Duke guy was a real dick. He paid his workers in tokens that could only be redeemed at his other businesses. But enough about that guy. John Risk became the outright owner in 1912, and he worked with DCL, Distillers Company Limited, aka the old Diageo. Clynelish was absorbed into DCL in 1925, and they closed in the 1930s. A new plant with 6 stills was built alongside the original distillery in 1968. So there was a Clynelish A and a Clynelish B. The old distillery is beautiful, the new one is a bit more modern and kind of ugly. The Scotch Whisky Association didn't like that there was a Clynelish A and a Clynelish B, and they were both creating different styles of whiskey. So the old distillery was renamed to Brora in 1969, and it produced a peated whiskey. It produced this heavily peated whiskey until 1973, and it closed in 1983. But in 2017, it was announced that Brora would reopen again, and if you know Scotch whiskey, you've probably heard of people hunting for Brora. It kind of reminds me of Bourbon Drinkers and Pappy Van Winkle. You can still find Brora, but they're few and far between and astronomically expensive. Clynelish is part of the extended classic malt series of Diageo, and sadly, 95% of the whiskey made at Clynelish is used in the 18-year gold label for Johnnie Walker. Alright, so we're going to talk about the waxiness of Clynelish, and to be honest with you, I still don't fully understand this. I put a few explanations of the waxiness in the description box below if you're interested. So we need to talk a bit about the distillation. You have your low wines, which are from your first distillation run, and then you have your cuts, your feints and foreshots. Now normally you have one vessel that holds all of these things, your low wines, your feints, and your foreshots. But Clynelish has a separate receiver for its feints and foreshots. This is where the magic happens. The compounds in the feints and the foreshots kind of settle over time in the tank and they create a gunk. The feints and foreshots are then quickly added to the low wines, but because they sit in that vessel for a while, the kind of gunk and compounds build up over time. They've cleaned this receiver before and the waxiness disappears and it can take years to fully come back. So now what they do is they clean it, they take the gunk out, then they clean it, and then they put the gunk back in. Alright, so let's get into the details of this whiskey. This bottle will run you about $70. It's owned by Diageo, and it's located north of Inverness on the Scottish coast of the Highlands. It's 14 years old, 46% ABV, and I was actually surprised. Apparently this is a peated malt, a lightly peated malt, but I didn't really get any peat on it at all. It's aged mostly in ex-bourbon casks, a little bit of sherry influence. It is, I'm assuming, colored and chill filtered. It's 46%, so it might not be chill filtered, but it doesn't say non-colored or non-chill filtered on the label, so that would just be a guess. Alright, I'm going to pour a dram of this, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and I'll be right back. Alright, I've let this open up for about 10 minutes. Let's go on the nose. So, first thing I get is a fresh, light, kind of fruitiness. You definitely get that wax. I mean, it just smells like candle wax. You get some honey on here as well. Quite a bit of orange citrus. And then you get, like, I think this is just kind of the bourbon cask, but the vanilla cream, like baking spices, a little bit of oak. And then I get a lot of barley sugar on the nose, which I really enjoy. There's a little bit of floral. After I made my tasting notes, I look up tasting notes just to see kind of if I'm in the ballpark. I did get a light floralness. They really, like on their website and a ton of reviews that said floral. I get a little bit, but not a crazy amount. And then I get kind of that coastal, kind of highland vibe. Like there's a little bit of salt, a little bit of brine. All right, let's go on the palate. Cheers, guys. So, this tastes so freaking good. A little bit of Kentucky hug too, or Scotland hug, whatever. But get a little bit of ginger, a little bit of baking spice, kind of some oak spice, just a hint of oak spice, not crazy, obviously. There's a little bit of tea that comes on, and kind of as it sits on your palate, the spice will calm down, and then you get a little bit more of that barley sugar. I've added water to this whiskey before, and it makes it super delicate, but without water, it's pretty spicy and powerful, in a good way, though. All right, let's go for another sip. Cheers, guys. It's really oily and creamy on the palate. I just absolutely love the texture. It's really sweet, and you get, right up front, kind of like what I was saying, you get a little bit of baking spice, and then that kind of fades away. And then I get this kind of effervescence, which I notice I get a lot on peated whiskeys. This does claim to be a peated whiskey. I don't really taste peat, but I get that effervescent texture, so maybe that's kind of where the peat's coming in. And then along with like a little bit of that effervescence, you also get this waxiness. Like it actually feels kind of like you dripped candle wax on your tongue. Like not burning your tongue, obviously, but just, there's a car alarm. A little bit of wax kind of on the palate. And I would say this is probably a medium to long finish. I don't know, that texture kind of hangs on for a little while, so it's hard to say that it's a medium finish, but a lot of the flavors kind of drop off at, I would say, like a medium finish kind of rate, but this is absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to finish this dram up, and I'll be right back with my recommendation. This is a nice everyday whiskey, and it seems like it would be great in the spring and summertime. There's quite a bit of complexity here, and I think personally it's got a lovely taste, wonderful texture, and it's just an easy dram to have any day of the week. If you like this, you would love a 30-year-old Brora. No, just kidding. Some more affordable options would be Dalyuen, Deanston, Clynelish, which are all known to have a waxy element in their whiskeys. And if you like this, there are a ton of independent bottlings of Clynelish, like Signatory, Single Cask Nation, and Exclusive Malts, to name a few. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Whiskey Central. Next week, I'll be reviewing Russell's Reserve 10-Year, so if you don't want to miss out, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, leave it a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. So, I have some workers in my backyard.
What do you want him to do?
Plant ficuses in my front yard.
I've seen your house. You'd have more success if he planted ficuses in your backyard.
So sorry if you can hear them. My dogs are barking. Sorry if you can hear them. Sorry if you can hear any other humans talking. There's just some stuff happening at my house. Can't get this. I like to force good enough. Good enough. And his other businesses. Built alongside the old plant. Does my face still have the thing? Okay. Extended malts. Exclusive malts. Okay.